The rights groups, the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, has urged the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt and Other Related Offences Commission to probe the source of wealth of any presidential aspirant of the All Progressive Congress who picks the party's 100 million naira presidential nomination and expression of interest forms. In a statement signed by its national coordinator, Emmanuel Onwubiko, the association says, "It is a shame that those who seek to govern Nigeria are made to cough out so much money to purchase forms just to signpost their original intention as persons whose only objective will be to first recoup their huge investments and to further impoverish the citizenry." We are now being joined by Chris Nwokobia, a public affairs analyst here in Lagos. Glad to have you here, Mr. Chris.
The pleasure is mine.
Well, how did you receive the news of these huge sums of money by the A.P.C for their presidential aspirants?
Let me say clearly that oftentimes we are more emotive and emotional than very logical about some of these things. I just listened to you and I heard when you talked about the position of the human rights body. And then have you forgotten that the average cost to prosecute a presidential campaign in this country is well over 5 billion naira? Have you also forgotten that you have over 15 aspirants and counting in the A.P.C? So practically, I guess what the party has just done is to try to reduce the number of those who are contesting for the party primaries. And I say this advisedly, if you wonder what will happen if you have all the aspirants at the convention, at the presidential primaries of the party, then it's going to be a behemoth. It's going to be a troublesome event. So if you have candidates who believe, or aspirants who believe that that money is too much, you have several other parties that they can go and get their party tickets and run for the presidential election. You must not run from the A.P.C. That's point number one. Then point number two, which is very important in this discourse, is that for the young people, the governor of Kogi State was able to make an argument that for any candidate who is below the age of, who is 40 and below, they should give a 50% discount for them. And I think it is logical. You must not run from the A.P.C. Those who want to run, who have the resources, who understand the spread and the wheat, if you like, of a party, would naturally put out the resources, put out the funds. And for 100 million, I heard the party public secretary saying this evening that most of the people who have indicated interest to run for the presidency have much more than that. So if they do, then they can purchase the form. What is important is that Nigerians should interrogate the candidates that are emerging, try to find out their sources of resources, try to find out where they're coming from, do what I call elimination series, and then ensure that the candidate that emerges from the A.P.C primaries is credible, is competent, and he has the capacity to go on.
Mr. Nwokobia, Nigerians are concerned that anyone who invests such a huge amount of money to get those forms would first of all want to recoup, and that could mean stealing. Let's not use corruption, now let's paint it exactly as it is, stealing from the coffers. This is a major concern for Nigerians, and you're saying it's rather just being emotional about it.
Let me say this. I ran for the higher office of president in 2011. I know how much it takes to print posters alone. That's why I said it's being emotional and emotive than being very logical. You must not get the ticket of the A.P.C to run. That's point number one.
Yeah,
and it
you've
is
made that
important
point already.
we
You've
deal
made
with
that
the
point.
fundamental issues. If you're going to spend so much money to run a campaign, what is 100 million compared to the amount you spend to run a campaign? So what we should be more concerned about is how we put a ceiling on how much you spend in running for elective office in this country.
Should this be controlled by INEC? How much a candidate spends and how much political parties put or peg their forms? Do you think INEC should step in somehow to control that?
If a party has 100 persons who want to run for an office, they have the right to say, oh, the way to limit the number is put 100 million as the money to purchase your form. What we should be concerned about is the limit on spending for presidential campaigns, for gubernatorial campaigns, for every level of elective office. And the law provides these limits. So what INEC and indeed the security agencies must do is to ensure that there's compliance to the provisions of the law. But I will not sit here and join the hoopla that says, oh, 100 million means that the person will steal. The fundamental issue is that in running a presidential campaign, a candidate spends more than 10 times that amount. So we should be able to regulate the fundamentals and leave, what we do in this country is major on the fruits rather than the root and the stem of our problems. If we try to muzzle the parties, what if at the end of the day you have 200 candidates, 200 aspirants tomorrow saying that they want to be president in A.P.C.? How do you first of all reduce the number?
Nigerians would expect that the parties will come up with a more logical ways of whittling down the numbers rather than shooting up the cost of their forms. But let's stop this conversation at this point.
What is the more logical way?
They should think outside the box.
If you're strong enough to run a presidential campaign, you should have 100 million to buy the form. That's the most logical way. If you're sure you can run the presidential campaign, you should have money to buy the form. That's the first logical way.
Well, let's stop this conversation here and watch how things unfold, and then we'll go back to this conversation because it is ongoing and it is still unfolding. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris Mustafa Nwokobia Jr., for your time.
God bless you and God bless Nigeria.
Bless you too.
Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit the notification button so you get notified about fresh news updates.